Captain Daehyun stood on the observation deck of Guardian 7, staring at the stars like he did every night. The orbital defense platform floated silently above Earth, watching over humanity's home world. For 20 years, Daehyun had served in the United Earth Defense Force, and for 20 years space had been quiet and peaceful. Tonight that peace was about to end. The alarm system screamed to life at 0300 hours. Red lights flashed across every console in the command center. Daehyun ran from the observation deck, his boots pounding against the metal floor. When he reached the command center, he found his crew frozen in shock, staring at their screens. Lieutenant Hyejin looked up at him, her face pale. "Sir, you need to see this." On the main display, 200 massive ships emerged from nowhere near Jupiter. They were enormous, each one 3 times the size of Earth's largest warships. Their hulls were dark purple and silver, covered in strange symbols that glowed with an eerie blue light. Energy crackled around them like lightning trapped in bottles. "What are those?" Daehyun whispered. "Unknown vessels, Captain," Hyejin replied. "They just appeared out of empty space. No warning, no gravitational distortions, nothing. 1 second space was empty, the next second they were there." Daehyun's mind raced. Humanity had searched for alien life for centuries. They had built colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. They had sent probes to distant stars, but they had never found anyone else. Until now. "Try to contact them," Daehyun ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we come in peace." The communications officer worked frantically at her station. Minutes passed like hours. Then the alien ships moved. They arranged themselves in perfect military formation, creating a wall of metal and weapons between Jupiter and Earth. It was not the formation of explorers or scientists. It was the formation of an invasion force. The main screen flickered. A face appeared, and everyone in the command center gasped. The alien had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on its face. Its skin was gray and covered in scales. When it spoke, the words came through translated by some advanced technology. "Primitive humans of Earth," the alien said, its voice cold and mechanical. "I am Commander Thrall of the Vryn Empire. Your species has been judged and found useful. You will surrender all your worlds, all your resources, and all your people within 72 hours. You will serve the Vryn Empire as all civilized species do. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Submit or be destroyed." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Daehyun felt his hands shaking. He clenched them into fists. "Get me Admiral Minho," he said quietly, "and wake up everyone on Earth who needs to know that we're not alone anymore, and that we're in trouble." Within an hour, every government on Earth knew about the Vryn. Emergency meetings filled conference rooms in every capital city. Admiral Minho, commander of Earth's primary defense fleet, appeared on Guardian 7's screen from his flagship. "What are our options?" Minho asked, his weathered face grim. Hyejin pulled up the tactical analysis. "Their ships have energy shields that can absorb our missiles and railgun fire. Their weapons use plasma that can melt through our armor in seconds. They have gravity weapons that can crush our ships like tin cans, and they outnumber our entire space fleet by 3 to 1. "So you're saying we can't win," Minho said. "I'm saying we can't win by fighting them the way they expect," Hyejin replied. She looked at Daehyun. "Sir, I've been analyzing their formation. It's perfect. Too perfect. Every ship is exactly where military doctrine says it should be. Their movements are precise and calculated. They follow rules," Daehyun leaned forward. "And that means? That means they've been doing this for a long time. They have thousands of years of military tradition. They know exactly how space battles should be fought. They expect us to line up our ships against theirs, to follow the rules of warfare, to fight with honor and strategy." Hyejin smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "What if we don't do any of that?" Admiral Minho raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Sir, look at human history. We've never been good at following rules when our survival is at stake. We've always found ways to win that nobody expected. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, psychological operations. We win by being unpredictable, by being chaotic, by doing things that make no sense to an organized enemy." Daehyun felt something stir in his chest. Hope, maybe, or perhaps just the stubborn human refusal to give up. They expect a military engagement. Professional soldiers following professional rules. "Exactly," Hyejin said. "So let's give them something else entirely." Over the next 72 hours, Earth prepared for war. But it was not the kind of preparation the Vryn expected. In shipyards across the solar system, Engineers worked around the clock. They welded weapons onto mining ships and cargo haulers. They stuffed nuclear warheads into empty fuel tanks. They built thousands of decoys and drones, cheap and fast. In military academies, the oldest veterans were brought out of retirement. They gathered young soldiers and taught them everything they knew about fighting dirty, about breaking rules, about winning by any means necessary. On Guardian 7, Daehyun watched the countdown timer tick toward 0. The Vryn fleet had moved closer, now orbiting Mars. They were giving Earth one last chance to surrender. Around him, his crew worked silently. Heejin coordinated with defense platforms across the solar system. The communications officer monitored the Vryn channels, listening to their cold, efficient orders. "They're so organized," the communications officer said. "Every command is followed instantly. Every ship knows exactly what to do. It's like watching a machine." "Good," Daehyun said. "Machines are predictable. Machines can be confused." With 10 minutes remaining, Admiral Minho's face appeared on every screen on Guardian 7. He looked tired, but his eyes burned with determination. "This is Admiral Minho to all Earth forces. In 10 minutes, the Vryn expect us to surrender. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. We're going to show them that humans don't follow their rules. We're going to show them chaos. Operation Mayhem begins in 10 minutes. Good luck to all of you. For Earth." "For Earth," Daehyun repeated, and around him his crew echoed the words. The countdown reached 0. On the main screen, Commander Thrall's face appeared again. "Humans, your time is up." "What is your answer?" Daehyun stepped forward and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Our answer is no. Come and take our world if you can. But I promise you one thing, Commander. You've never fought anyone like us before. You're about to learn that humanity doesn't know how to quit, and we definitely don't know how to fight fair." He cut the transmission. Around him, alarms began to sound as the Vryn fleet powered up their weapons. On the tactical display, 200 alien warships began their advance toward Earth. They moved in perfect formation, like they had 1,000 times before against 1,000 other species. But this time, they were not facing a species that understood proper warfare. They were facing humans, and humans had spent their entire history finding creative ways to win impossible fights. "Launch everything," Daehyun ordered, and I mean everything. It's time to show these aliens what chaos really looks like. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The first wave of chaos hit the Vryn fleet 15 minutes after they began their advance. It started with junk, literal junk from Earth's orbital shipyards, launched at high speed toward the alien formation. Old satellites, broken solar panels, empty fuel containers, and thousands of metal fragments filled space between Mars and Earth. Commander Thrall watched from his flagship as his sensors lit up with targets. Thousands of them. His tactical officer looked confused. "Commander, the humans are launching debris at us. Should we shoot it down?" Thrall narrowed his 4 eyes. This was not standard warfare. Civilized species opened with long-range missiles or energy weapons, not garbage. But he was a careful commander. "Destroy anything larger than 2 meters. Ignore the rest." The Vryn fleet opened fire. Plasma beams cut through space, vaporizing satellites and metal fragments. Their point defense systems worked overtime, tracking and destroying the incoming junk. It was easy, too easy, which should have been Thrall's first warning that something was wrong. Hidden among the debris were real weapons. Electromagnetic pulse mines, small and cold, drifted silently. They looked like broken machinery on Vryn sensors. When the alien fleet passed through the debris field, the mines activated. Blue lightning erupted across space, washing over the lead Vryn ships. Their shields held against the energy, but something unexpected happened. The shields flickered and died, overloaded by the sudden electromagnetic surge. "Shields down on the forward vessels," Thrall's tactical officer shouted. "Restoring them now. How long?" Thrall demanded. 40 seconds, Commander." 40 seconds was all Earth needed. From behind the moon, Admiral Minho's fleet appeared. Not the massive warships Thrall expected, but hundreds of small, fast ships, converted mining vessels, racing yachts fitted with railguns, and cargo ships loaded with missiles. They came at the Vryn from every direction, not in formation but in complete chaos. On Guardian 7, Daehyun watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Heejin, how's our timing?" "Perfect, sir. The Vryn are trying to reorganize, but they can't track all our ships. Their targeting computers are designed for organized fleet combat. One of the small Earth ships, a converted asteroid miner called Lucky Dragon, charged directly at a Vryn cruiser. The alien ship fired its plasma cannon, scoring direct hits. Lucky Dragon's armor melted and buckled, but the ship kept coming. At the last second, its crew evacuated in escape pods. The ship, now on autopilot, slammed into the Vryn cruiser at thousands of kilometers per hour. The impact was devastating. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal. The debris spread across space, forcing nearby Vryn ships to break formation to avoid collision. They sacrificed their ship, Thrall said, disbelief in his voice. On purpose. Without being disabled first. What kind of barbaric species does that? His tactical officer had no answer. In 47 conquered systems, no enemy had ever deliberately destroyed their own ships as a weapon. It was wasteful. It was illogical. It was chaos, and the chaos was just beginning. Engineering Chief Sora watched from the lunar shipyards as her creations went into battle. She was short, covered in grease and grinning like a maniac. Around her, hundreds of engineers worked on the next wave of weapons. "How many inflatable decoys do we have ready?" she asked. 2,000, an engineer replied. "They'll inflate to full size once launched and emit the same heat and radiation signatures as our warships." "Perfect. Launch them toward the Vryn right flank. Let's see how they handle tracking 4,000 targets when half of them are balloons." The decoys launched. On Vryn sensors, it looked like Earth had suddenly doubled its fleet. Thrall ordered his ships to target the new threats, splitting his fire between real ships and inflatable dummies. His weapons officers grew frustrated as they wasted plasma charges on targets that popped like bubbles. Private Jiwan sat in the cockpit of her fighter, fingers dancing across the controls. She was 22 years old, fresh out of training, and absolutely terrified. But she was also one of the best drone racers in Asia before joining the military. She knew how to fly in ways that made no sense. "Blue Squadron, form up on me," her squadron leader ordered. Jiwan ignored him. Instead, she broke formation and flew in a spiral pattern, spinning her fighter as she approached a Vryn destroyer. The alien ship's targeting computer tried to predict her path, but she was not following any path. She was flying purely on instinct, making it up as she went. Her fighter's railgun spat tungsten rounds at the destroyer's exposed shield generator, the one knocked offline by the EMP mines. The rounds punched through armor and exploded inside the ship. The destroyer's lights flickered and died. "Blue 7, what are you doing?" her squadron leader yelled. "Get back in formation." "Formation's boring, sir," Jiwan replied, already spiraling away from return fire. "And it makes us predictable." Other pilots watched Jiwan's success and started copying her chaotic flying style. Soon, dozens of human fighters were weaving through space in unpredictable patterns. The Vryn point defense systems, designed to shoot down missiles flying in straight lines, could not keep up. On the Vryn flagship, Commander Thrall felt something he had not felt in decades: uncertainty. His fleet was superior in every way. Better weapons, better armor, better shields. But the humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They were like insects swarming from every direction, dying easily but always replaced by more. "Order all ships to fall back and regroup," Thrall commanded. "We'll form a defensive sphere and let them come to us." "Commander, that's not in the invasion doctrine," his tactical officer said carefully. "I know what the doctrine says," Thrall snapped. "But these humans are not following any doctrine at all. We need to adapt." But adapting was exactly what the Vryn were not good at. They had won 47 wars by following the same proven strategies. They had never needed to change. Why would they? Their way worked every time, except against humans who specialized in making up new rules when the old rules did not favor them. As the Vryn fleet pulled back into a defensive formation, Earth launched the next phase of Operation Mayhem. Every communications satellite in the solar system began broadcasting on Vryn frequencies. But they were not sending military communications. They were sending memes, music, jokes, random conversations, cat videos from the 21st century, and on a loop, over and over, one particular song that humanity had used to annoy each other for generations. "What is this noise?" a Vryn communications officer demanded, trying to filter out the garbage flooding their channels. "I don't know, sir, but it's on every frequency. We can't communicate between ships without hearing it." Commander Thrall listened to the chaos on his speakers. He heard laughter, music, strange human voices saying things that made no sense. And underneath it all, that song. That terrible, repetitive song. "Cut all communications," he ordered. "Use laser links between ships only." But laser communications were slower and limited line of sight only. The Vryn fleet's coordination suffered immediately. Orders took longer to transmit. Ships could not communicate with vessels on the other side of the formation. Back on Guardian 7, Heejin monitored the Vryn response with satisfaction. They've cut their radio communications. They're using laser links now, which means they're half-blind and can't coordinate fleet-wide maneuvers, Daehyun said. Time for Phase 3. Launch the cargo containers. Across the solar system, hundreds of cargo containers launched toward the Vryn fleet. They were old, rusty, and appeared to be civilian ships fleeing the battle. The Vryn ignored them, focusing on the military targets. The containers drifted into the Vryn formation. Then they opened. Thousands of autonomous mining drones emerged, small machines designed to cut apart asteroids. They swarmed over Vryn ships, their industrial lasers and cutting tools slicing into armor, severing external sensors, and damaging weapon mounts. A Vryn destroyer tried to shoot the drones, but they were too small and too numerous. For every drone destroyed, 5 more took its place. They were not doing massive damage, but they were everywhere, forcing the Vryn crews to focus on defense instead of offense. This is madness, Thrall roared, watching his fleet being picked apart by mining equipment. They're using civilian tools as weapons. His tactical officer looked terrified. Sir, the humans have no respect for proper warfare. They're breaking every convention of civilized combat. Thrall stared at the tactical display. His fleet was still superior. He had lost only 15 ships compared to humanity's 60. But those numbers did not reflect reality. His ships were scattered, confused, unable to coordinate. Their sensors were overloaded. Their communications were disrupted. And worst of all, his crews were exhausted and demoralized. They had never fought an enemy like this. An enemy that did not care about honor or tradition or proper military tactics. An enemy that threw everything at you. Military and civilian, organized and chaotic all at once. Commander, his tactical officer said quietly, perhaps we should request reinforcements. Thrall wanted to refuse. Requesting help after just one battle would be admitting weakness. But pride would not save his fleet from this insanity. Send for reinforcements, he said finally, and tell them to prepare for something they've never encountered before. Tell them the humans fight. 3 days after the first battle, 500 more Vryn warships arrived in the solar system. Commander Thrall felt relief wash over him as the reinforcements took position alongside his battered fleet. Now he had the numbers to crush these insane humans once and for all. On Earth, the mood was different. In the military command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Minho studied the new enemy positions with tired eyes. He had not slept in 70 hours. We bloodied their nose, Heejin said, standing beside him. But now they've brought their whole fist. Then we'll have to be smarter, Minho replied. What do we know about them? In a laboratory on the moon, Dr. Yoonji was asking herself the same question. The xenobiologist stood before a containment cell holding 3 captured Vryn officers, taken from a destroyer disabled in the first battle. She had been studying them non-stop, trying to find any weakness. They communicate using a combination of sounds and electrical signals. Yoonji spoke into her recorder. Their hearing is extremely sensitive, especially to frequencies between 800 and 1200 hertz. They're also highly dependent on their command structure. Without orders from superiors, they become confused and hesitant. One of the captured Vryn looked at her with its 4 eyes. You cannot win, human. The Empire has never lost a war. We have perfected military science over 10,000 years. Yoonji smiled sadly. That's your problem. You've perfected it, made it predictable. We're still figuring ours out, which makes us very dangerous. She took her findings to Admiral Minho. Within hours, a new plan formed. They called it Operation Babel, named after an ancient Earth story about language and confusion. If the Vryn relied so heavily on their command structure and sensitive hearing, then Earth would attack both. Commander Kyung-soo received his orders in the Special Operations Briefing Room on Guardian 7. He was a quiet man with scars across his hands from 100 covert missions. This one would be the most dangerous yet. You want us to board their flagship? He asked Captain Daehyun. Not want. Need, Daehyun replied. We've developed a virus that will corrupt their central AI. But someone has to physically upload it to their main computer. That means getting onto their flagship, past their security, and into their command core. That's a suicide mission. I know. Dae-hyun met his eyes. That's why I'm only asking for volunteers. Kyung-soo looked at the 12 soldiers behind him. Every hand went up. He felt pride and sadness at the same time. When do we leave? 2 hours. And Kyung-soo? Thank you, all of you. The team launched in stealth pods, tiny ships coated with materials that absorbed radar and heat. They drifted into a debris field created from destroyed ships, pretending to be wreckage. It took 18 hours to float close enough to the Vrin flagship. 18 hours of silence, cramped in tiny spaces, knowing that one wrong move meant death. Finally, they attached themselves to the flagship's hull. Kyung-soo used a molecular cutter to slice through the armor. The tool was experimental, and it took 3 hours to cut a hole large enough to crawl through. By the time they entered the ship, Kyung-soo's hands were shaking from exhaustion. Inside the flagship, everything was strange. The corridors were too tall, designed for the 7-foot Vrin. The lighting flickered between spectrums humans could barely see. Strange smells filled the air, chemicals and scents from an alien world. Stay quiet, Kyung-soo whispered. They hunt by sound. They moved through the ship like ghosts. Twice they had to hide while Vrin patrols passed. Once a Vrin soldier stood 3 feet away from Kyung-soo's hiding spot, all 4 eyes scanning the corridor. Kyung-soo held his breath, his heart pounding so loud he was sure the alien would hear it. After an eternity, the soldier moved on. It took them 6 hours to reach the command core. They lost 2 soldiers along the way, killed in brief, silent struggles with Vrin security. When they finally reached the computer center, Kyung-soo pulled out the data drive containing Earth's virus. This better work, he muttered, plugging it into the alien system. The virus uploaded in seconds, spreading through the Vrin network like wildfire. Then alarms started blaring. They had been discovered? Run! Kyung-soo shouted, and his team sprinted back through the corridors. Plasma fire scorched the walls around them. One soldier fell, then another. Kyung-soo kept running, leading the survivors toward their extraction point. They made it to the hull breach with only 4 soldiers left. As they dove through the hole into their waiting pods, Kyung-soo looked back and saw a Vrin officer aiming a weapon at him. He was too slow. The plasma bolt would hit him before he could move. Then one of his soldiers, a young woman named Mireille, pushed him aside and took the shot instead. She died instantly. Kyung-soo tumbled into the pod. The door sealed. The pod launched. Behind him, Mireille's body floated in space, another sacrifice for Earth's survival. He wanted to scream, to cry, but there was no time. The mission came first. Always. Back on the Vrin flagship, Commander Thrall noticed something wrong immediately. His tactical displays started showing gibberish. Orders sent to his fleet came back translated into nonsense. The AI that coordinated his 700 ships began issuing contradictory commands. What's happening? Thrall demanded. Unknown, Commander. The system is corrupted. Ships are receiving orders to advance and retreat simultaneously. The AI is translating our language incorrectly. Fix it. We're trying, sir, but the corruption is spreading. It's rewriting itself faster than we can isolate it. Across the Vrin fleet, chaos erupted. Ships broke formation following contradictory orders. Some vessels charged toward Earth while others retreated toward Mars. 2 destroyers collided when both received orders to occupy the same position. Worst of all, the ship's internal communication systems began emitting a high-frequency sound. The exact frequency Dr. Yunji had identified as painful to Vrin hearing. Vrin crews clutched their heads in agony as the screaming sound echoed through their ships. Some collapsed. Others fled to emergency shelters, abandoning their posts. The perfectly coordinated fleet descended into confusion and friendly fire as ships could no longer identify friend from foe. On Guardian 7, Hee-jin watched the Vrin fleet tear itself apart and felt no joy. Only grim necessity. Phase 2 of Operation Babel is ready, Captain. Dae-hyun nodded. Launch the construction drones. Earth's construction industry had built humanity's orbital stations and moon bases. Now those same companies sent their tools to war. 10,000 construction drones emerged from hidden positions throughout the solar system. These machines were designed to assemble space stations working with precision and patience. They descended on the Vrin fleet like a swarm of metal insects. But instead of building, they deconstructed. Industrial clamps grabbed onto ship hulls. Cutting lasers designed to shape steel beams sliced through armor plating. Welding torches meant for joining metal instead melted weapon mounts and sensor arrays. Cargo manipulators. strong enough to move multi-ton station modules, began literally pulling Vryn ships apart piece by piece. A Vryn cruiser tried to shake off the drones crawling across its hull. It fired its thrusters erratically, spinning and rolling. Some drones were thrown off into space, but more kept coming. They worked with mechanical determination, treating the warship like a construction project scheduled for demolition. Within an hour, the cruiser was a hollow shell. Its weapons removed, its engines dismantled, its systems stripped. "They're using construction equipment as weapons," Thrall shouted, watching helplessly as his fleet was systematically taken apart. "What kind of species weaponizes their builders?" "The kind that refuses to lose, Commander," his tactical officer replied quietly. Meanwhile, Earth deployed another weapon from its arsenal of chaos. High above the battle, orbital defense platforms had been preparing kinetic bombardment strikes. These were not exotic energy weapons or advanced missiles. They were just metal rods, long and dense, aimed with incredible precision. Physics did the rest. Dropped from orbit, the rods accelerated under Earth's gravity until they were traveling at tremendous speeds. When they hit their targets, Vryn ships, the kinetic energy released was equivalent to small nuclear explosions. Armor that could withstand plasma fire crumpled like paper. Shields designed to deflect energy weapons did nothing against simple mass and velocity. The Vryn had never encountered kinetic bombardment. Their empire had abandoned such primitive tactics thousands of years ago. They had forgotten that sometimes the simplest weapons were the most effective. Humanity had not forgotten. Humanity had spent centuries dropping things on each other from high places, and had gotten very good at it. Commander Thrall watched his reinforcement fleet dissolve into chaos. In 3 hours, he had lost more ships than in the previous 10 years of conquest combined. And he still had not gotten close to Earth. The humans had not even deployed their main fleet yet. Everything so far had been mining equipment, construction drones, civilian ships, and simple physics. "Send a message to the Empire," Thrall said, his voice hollow. "Tell them we need the World Breaker. Tell them conventional warfare will not work against these creatures. They don't fight like civilized species. They fight like the universe itself has declared war." The World Breaker moved through deep space like a dark moon drifting between stars. It was 300 kilometers across, covered in weapons powerful enough to tear continents apart. Inside its command center, the Vryn Empire's highest admirals planned Earth's destruction. On Earth, humanity had 96 hours to do the impossible. Admiral Minho stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing Vryn-controlled space. He had made a decision that many thought was insane. Instead of defending Earth and waiting for the World Breaker to arrive, he was going to attack. "We're taking the fight to them," Minho announced to the assembled commanders. "Every ship we can spare, every pilot willing to fly, we're going into Vryn territory. We're going to hit their supply lines, attack their occupied worlds, and show the galaxy that Earth doesn't wait to die." Captain Dahyun listened from Guardian 7 and felt his stomach twist. It was brilliant and terrifying at the same time. If they failed, Earth would be defenseless when the World Breaker arrived. But if they succeeded, they might inspire rebellions across the entire Vryn Empire. While the military prepared for the offensive, another battle was being fought in cyberspace. A mysterious group of hackers who called themselves Phantom Cell had been working non-stop since the Vryn arrived. Their leader, known only as Hajun, sat in a dark room filled with computer screens, his fingers flying across keyboards. "I'm in," Hajun said to his team scattered across Earth. "I've accessed the Vryn's empire-wide communication network. Uploading the files now." What Hajun uploaded would change everything. For years, the Vryn Empire had hidden evidence of their atrocities. Mass executions of rebellious populations, slave labor camps on conquered worlds, planets stripped of resources until nothing lived there. The Empire presented itself as bringing order and civilization to the galaxy, but the truth was darker, bloodier, and more brutal. Phantom Cell released it all. Every file, every video, every recorded order from Vryn commanders. They broadcast it across the entire Empire, on channels that could not be blocked or silenced. Billions of enslaved beings across dozens of star systems saw the truth for the first time. On the planet Keltar, conquered 20 years ago, a rebellion began within hours. The Keltar people had been forced to mine radioactive minerals under Vryn guard. When they saw the broadcasts from Earth, saw humans fighting back, saw proof that the Empire could be resisted, something broke. The workers rose up, overwhelming their guards with sheer numbers. They seized control of the orbital defense platforms and turned the weapons on the Vryn garrison. Similar rebellions erupted on 7 other worlds. The Vryn Empire, which had seemed invincible, suddenly faced fires burning across its territory. They had to pull ships away from Earth to contain the uprisings. Their focus divided, their forces scattered. Commander Thrall watched the Empire crumble around him and felt rage like he had never known. The humans did this. They poisoned the Empire with their chaos, with their lies. "They're not lies, Commander," his tactical officer said quietly. "Those files are authentic. I verified them." Thrall turned his 4 eyes on the officer. "Are you questioning the Empire?" "I'm questioning if we're the ones bringing civilization, sir. Or if we're just bringing death and calling it order." Thrall had the officer removed from the bridge, but the doubt had been planted. Even among his own crew, whispers began. Whispers asking if the humans might be right, if the Empire might be wrong. Earth's offensive fleet launched with 2,000 ships. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and heading into enemy territory with no guarantee of survival. But they carried something more powerful than weapons. They carried hope. Hope that had been broadcast across the galaxy by Phantom Cell. Hope that inspired the rebellions now burning across Vryn space. Captain Dahyun led one battle group toward a Vryn supply depot orbiting a gas giant. His small fleet used the tactics they had perfected defending Earth. They came at the depot from 16 different directions simultaneously. They broadcast jamming signals, launched decoys, and flew in patterns that made no logical sense. The depot's defenses were designed to handle organized attacks. They were not prepared for chaos. Within an hour, the depot was destroyed, and Dahyun's fleet was already jumping to the next target. Hit and run, strike and fade, never where the enemy expected, never fighting the way the enemy prepared for. On another front, Private Jiwan led a squadron of fighters through an asteroid field toward a Vryn shipyard. Her chaotic flying style had become famous among human pilots. Others tried to copy her, but Jiwan flew on pure instinct, making decisions faster than thought. She wove through asteroids at speeds that should have been impossible, her fighters following in her wake like metal birds. The shipyard defenders tried to target her squadron, but could not keep up with their erratic movements. Jiwan's fighters released their entire payload of missiles in one overwhelming salvo, then dove through the shipyard structure itself, using the facility's own towers and docks as cover. By the time the Vryn realized what happened, the shipyard was crippled, and Jiwan was already accelerating away. Back on Earth, Engineering Chief Sora had not been idle. She stood in a converted factory, watching the final assembly of humanity's desperate gamble. It was a weapon unlike anything created before. Not a bomb or missile, but something that could reach into the heart of the world breaker and tear it apart from inside. "Will it work?" Admiral Minho asked, walking through the factory. Sora wiped grease from her face and shrugged. "Honestly, I have no idea. The theory is sound. If we can destabilize the world breaker's power core, it should trigger a chain reaction. But getting the weapon inside means someone has to fly right up to it, through all its defenses, and survive long enough to deploy the payload. So a suicide mission." "I prefer to call it a very optimistic mission," Sora replied, but her smile was sad. She knew what she was asking. Someone would have to die to give Earth a chance. The call went out for volunteers. Within hours, 10,000 pilots had applied. They interviewed each one, looking for someone with the perfect combination of skill, courage, and just enough crazy to try the impossible. They found him in a young pilot named Taeyang. Taeyang was 24 from Busan and had scored perfect marks in every flight simulation. He was also known for taking risks that other pilots considered insane. He had once flown through a collapsing space station to rescue trapped workers, navigating through explosions and debris by pure instinct. He was exactly the kind of pilot this mission needed. "You understand what we're asking?" Admiral Minho said to Taeyang in the briefing room. "You need someone to fly into the most heavily defended target in the galaxy and deliver a weapon that might not even work," Taeyang replied. "I understand, sir. And you're still volunteering?" Taeyang smiled. It was a young smile full of hope and defiance. "Sir, the Vryn came here expecting us to surrender. They thought we'd be easy to conquer because we're young and chaotic. I want to show them that our chaos is exactly what makes us dangerous. I want to show them that humans don't quit, even when quitting makes sense. Especially then." Minho felt tears in his eyes but blinked them away. Then you'll have your chance. The Worldbreaker arrives in 36 hours. We'll give you the best ship we have, the best escort we can provide. And Taeyang? Thank you. For Earth, for all of us, for Earth, Taeyang echoed. And for showing the galaxy that humans write our own ending to every story. While preparations continued for the assault on the Worldbreaker, Phantom Cell continued their cyber warfare campaign. Hajun had penetrated deeper into Vrin's systems than anyone thought possible. He discovered the Worldbreaker's shield generator frequency and transmitted it to Earth's forces. He hacked into Vrin military channels and spread false orders, creating confusion and mistrust. He even managed to broadcast human music into Vrin ships, the same annoying tactics that had worked before. But Hajun's greatest achievement was yet to come. He found the personnel files of every Vrin soldier and officer. He saw their home worlds, their families, their lives before the military, and he shared those files with other hackers in Phantom Cell. These aren't monsters, Hajun said during a video conference with his team. They're people, soldiers following orders, same as anyone. Maybe if we show them that, show them they're individuals with choices, some of them might question what they're doing. It was a long shot, but Phantom Cell began sending personal messages to Vrin soldiers. Messages that said things like, your daughter on Vrin Prime turns 6 next month. Don't you want to see her birthday? Or your brother is part of the rebellion on Keltar. He's fighting for freedom. Which side of history will you be on? Some Vrin deleted the messages immediately, but others read them, thought about them, and began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the Empire was wrong about these humans. Maybe they were not barbarians. Maybe they were just people fighting for their home, the same way anyone would. Commander Thrall received reports of desertion among his crews. Nothing massive, but a few soldiers here and there refusing orders, asking questions, expressing doubt. It was a cancer spreading through his fleet, planted by human words and human defiance. The Worldbreaker emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, and for a moment, everyone on both sides simply stared. It was massive beyond comprehension, a moon turned into a weapon, its surface covered with cannons that could crack planets. Around it, the remains of Commander Thrall's fleet formed a protective screen, still hundreds of ships strong despite their losses. But they were not alone. As the Worldbreaker settled into position, other ships began arriving, ships bearing the marks of the Keltar Rebellion, vessels from 6 other freed worlds flying colors the Vrin had tried to erase. They were battered, poorly armed, and vastly outmatched. But they came anyway, drawn by Earth's example, inspired by humanity's refusal to surrender. On Guardian 7, Captain Daehyun watched the Allied fleet assemble and felt something break inside his chest. Not despair, but its opposite. These beings from across the galaxy had come to fight beside Earth, to stand against the empire that had enslaved them. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had sparked a wildfire of rebellion across the stars. Admiral Minho, Daehyun said into the communication link. The rebels are here. They're really here. I see them, Captain, Minho replied from his flagship. His voice was thick with emotion. We're not alone anymore. We never were. We just had to show everyone else that resistance was possible. The Worldbreaker began charging its main weapon. Deep within the battle station, reactors powered up, feeding unimaginable energy into a cannon designed to shatter worlds. The targeting systems locked onto Earth, helpless and blue below. The countdown began. 30 minutes until Earth died. Taeyang sat in his fighter, hands steady on the controls despite the fear crawling through his stomach. His ship was called Last Light, modified by Engineering Chief Sora herself. It carried the destabilizer weapon in its cargo bay, a device that looked too small to kill something as massive as the Worldbreaker. Around him, 400 volunteer fighters formed his escort, ready to die to give him a chance. All pilots, this is Admiral Minho. The voice came through on all channels. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every world that ever dreamed of freedom. The Vrin expect order. Give them chaos. They expect strategy. Give them madness. They expect us to fail. Prove them wrong. For Earth, for the galaxy, for the future, for Earth. Thousands of voices echoed back. The largest space battle in recorded history began. Earth's fleet, the rebel forces, and the desperate volunteers crashed into the Vrin defensive screen like a wave against stone. Ships exploded in the first seconds. Dozens died before they even reached weapons range. But they kept coming, pressing forward through the fire. Lieutenant Hyejin coordinated the chaos from Guardian 7, her mind tracking hundreds of moving pieces simultaneously. She sent fighters spiraling in from unexpected angles. She directed bombers to target seemingly random points on Vryn ships that she had identified as structural weaknesses. She orchestrated a symphony of destruction that had no melody, no rhythm, only raw determination and creative violence. Private Jiwan led her squadron on a suicide run past 3 Vryn cruisers. Her flying was even more chaotic than before, fueled by desperation and rage. She dove through plasma fire that should have vaporized her, rolled her fighter sideways through gaps that should not have existed, and fired missiles at targets she identified purely by instinct. 2 cruisers exploded behind her, their shields overwhelmed by her squad's concentrated assault. On the Worldbreaker, Commander Thrall watched his defensive screen collapse under the human assault. They were losing. The humans and their rebel allies were actually breaking through his fleet. It should have been impossible. His forces still had superior numbers and firepower, but the attackers fought like they had already accepted death, and were only here to take as many enemies with them as possible. 15 minutes until main weapon fires. The weapons officer reported. Target locked on Earth's capital region. Continue charging, Thrall ordered. Once Earth is destroyed, these rebellions will collapse. Fear will restore order. But fear was no longer working. The rebels had seen Earth fight back. They had seen humans refuse to surrender even against impossible odds. That sight had killed their fear and replaced it with something far more dangerous. Belief. Belief that the Empire could be beaten. Taeyang and his escort pushed through the battle, heading directly for the Worldbreaker. Plasma fire carved through his formation. He watched ships beside him explode, friends and fellow pilots dying in flashes of light. But he did not slow down. Could not slow down. The weapon in his cargo bay was Earth's last hope. Phantom Cell, working from their hidden locations across Earth, had one more trick to play. Hajun had spent the last 36 hours creating the ultimate virus, one designed specifically for the Worldbreaker's systems. As Taeyang's force approached, Hajun uploaded the virus into the battle station's network. The Worldbreaker's shields flickered. Not completely down, but weak, fluctuating, creating gaps that lasted only seconds. It was not much, but for pilots flying at the edge of human ability, seconds were enough. Shields are unstable, Taeyang shouted. All fighters, follow me through the gaps. Don't think, just react. He dove toward the Worldbreaker's surface, his fighter threading through shield gaps that appeared and vanished like lightning. His remaining escorts followed, their ships weaving through the impossible spaces. Half of them died when the shield snapped back, but the other half made it through, including Taeyang. They were inside the shield perimeter now, flying over the Worldbreaker's surface. Point defense cannons tracked them, firing thousands of rounds. Taeyang flew between the shots over weapons emplacements around communication towers. His mind was empty of fear, empty of thought. He was pure instinct and determination. Target located, someone called out. It was a vent shaft leading to the power core, barely large enough for a fighter to enter. Cover me, Taeyang ordered, angling toward the shaft. His remaining escorts spread out, drawing fire away from him. They flew in circles and zigzags in patterns that defied physics and sanity. They died buying him seconds. One by one, the brave pilots fell, their ships consumed by defensive fire. Taeyang entered the shaft. It was dark, narrow, lined with energy conduits that crackled with power. He flew by feel, using his fighter's sensors to navigate the maze of passages inside the battle station. Behind him, more escorts fell to the pursuing Vryn defensive drones. On Guardian 7, Captain Daehyun watched Taeyang's signal move deeper into the Worldbreaker. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, kid. You can do this." Taeyang burst into the power core chamber, a vast space filled with reactors generating enough energy to destroy planets. The destabilizer weapon armed automatically, ready to deploy, but Taeyang saw Vryn soldiers scrambling to stop him, saw defensive systems powering up to shoot him down before he could launch the weapon. He made a decision. Instead of deploying the weapon remotely, he aimed his fighter directly at the central reactor. His voice came through the communication channel one last time, calm and almost happy. "This is Taeyang to all Earth forces. Humanity doesn't follow your rules. We make our own. We improvise, we adapt, and we never ever quit. Remember that, everyone. Remember that humans write our own ending. He paused. For Earth, for the galaxy, for the future that's coming. He cut off external communications and opened a channel to his family back home. Mom, Dad, Jisoo, I'm sorry I won't make it home. But I'm not scared. I'm proud. Proud to be human. Proud to show the universe what we're capable of when we fight for something we love. Take care of each other. And remember, even chaos can be beautiful when it fights for something good. Then he pushed his fighter to maximum speed and crashed directly into the reactor core. The destabilizer weapon triggered on impact. The effect was instant and catastrophic. The reactor's energy flow destabilized, creating a chain reaction that spread to every connected power system. The Worldbreaker's reactors began overloading one by one, each feeding into the next like dominoes falling. Commander Thrall felt the deck shake beneath his feet. What's happening? Core breach, the engineering officer screamed. All reactors going critical. We have to evacuate. No, Thrall said quietly, finally understanding. There's no time. That human pilot just destroyed the Worldbreaker. One small ship, one young pilot, against all our power, all our weapons, all our might. He sat down heavily in his command chair, and we never saw it coming because we thought chaos was weakness. We were wrong. The Worldbreaker exploded. The chain reaction consumed the entire battle station in seconds, creating a blast visible from Earth. The explosion was so massive that it destroyed dozens of nearby Vryn ships caught in the expanding sphere of energy and debris. The flagship of the Vryn Empire, their ultimate weapon, their symbol of invincible order, died in chaos and fire. On Earth, billions of people watched the explosion light up the sky. In command centers, on streets, in homes, humans wept and cheered. They had done the impossible. A young pilot named Taiyang had flown into legend and saved the world.